This is how we start creating unity within ourselves. This is where I think we will find the new world that some people talk about and the new vibration. This is how we create that, and this is what you can do today in your life to start creating that for your own. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of On Purpose by Lynn. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Lynn. I share with you my findings within the journey of spiritual awakening, within the journey of finding my truth, finding what works as a spiritual being, living a human experience, how we can ground that into reality, how we can become the best human possible, how can we move through our awakening process with grace and ease. And I'm laughing because I'm saying ease, and none of the spiritual awakening process is kind of easy. No, that's not true. Not all, but a big chunk of spiritual awakening isn't easy. And then it gets easier and beautiful and expansive. But welcome if you're new here, and hello again if you've been around. Very happy to have you here and very grateful to have you here. So today I'm going to talk about a topic that kind of came to me last week, and it's about unity consciousness, and it's about abundance and how we can start to embody this energy into our lives. And you know, this past year and a half, almost 2 years, I've been going through a healing journey. And I've had so many realizations, and I have needed to go through so much healing. I've had to cry and let out all my emotions and regulate my nervous system. And I basically had to let go of a lot of grief and a lot of loss. And I will talk about that in another video. But throughout this kind of heart-opening, heart-breaking, heart-warming, everything journey, I've had to see and learn that we have many different parts within us. And I'm going to jump straight into why this is so important. How can we start to embody this energy, right? So we have many different parts within us. This is what Susan Jane Rome shared with me, taught me, and this is what I've come to know within myself. We have so many different parts within ourselves. Some people talk about the inner children, the inner child, right? And I've learned actually we don't just have, sorry, there were some cute dogs running around there. We don't just have one inner child. We have actually many inner children. And those parts of us, they exist, or we disown them. And you might notice from shadow work, we disown parts of ourselves when we are confronted when we're little, when parts of us aren't socially accepted, socially loved. And what this means is mom and dad didn't like that within me, and because of that, because I depended on them, specifically your parents, maybe it was your school teacher, but usually, you know, the parents are the basis. We suppress parts of ourselves. We start to suppress emotions and parts of ourselves that we think are unlovable, are not enough. That's what we're consciously, probably unconsciously are being taught, because no parent wants to do that to their child, right? It's not to blame them, but it's something that I've got to know within myself. And so all these parts, they carry a story, they carry baggage, they carry something that they're holding on to. And it's not like those parts, because we suppress them, they're not here. They're here, but they're in the shadow. They're somewhere where we cannot see them, and they will act out in our lives, and they will cause us situations. And I don't mean this in a like they cause us situations. No, I mean this in the most loving way and embracing way. These parts, they try to get our attention, so they will start creating situations in our lives. They will start to talk with us throughout our inner voice, right? Maybe you know the inner critic. It's not just some unnecessary thing that's talking to you in your mind. It's actually a protection mechanism, a part of you that's trying to get your attention. It's trying to protect you from being hurt again, because that's how hurt they were. So they're trying with all their power for you not to make that same mistake again, or not to get rejected again, or to feel unloved, or to feel so heartbroken, because that's the pain that they had to go through. I hope this is making sense, and this isn't all over the place, because I didn't write down anything. I'm just gonna let it flow. So these parts of us, they have kind of their own mind, their own almost identity, I would say. And you could call it the ego, you could call it the shadow, you could call it the inner child. I asked my coaches, I asked Susan Jane Rome, I asked her, what's the difference when we started doing this work? And she said, there are all these different philosophies, and they're all kind of trying to name the same thing, or describe the same phenomena. But I found that through seeing it through different lenses, different perspectives, we start to have a broader understanding and experience of what these parts actually are, and what they do in our lives, and why they're here, and what they need most, which is love, which is being heard, being seen, being felt. And so these parts, they're crucial for us, because when you think about when we suppress, and when you think, and I want you to keep in mind abundance, right? Unity consciousness. When we suppress certain parts of ourselves, we kind of separate from ourselves, right? People talk about people being separated, or unity consciousness. We're all one, and all of that is beautiful, but what does that mean in our own lives? What does it mean for us to create abundance in our own lives? What does it mean to create unity in our own lives? It's through finding that wholeness again. And so integrating these parts, talking with those parts, feeling their emotions, because all the parts that we have suppressed, they're now kind of, it's not like they're gone, but we quite literally, we disown them, we separated from them, and now they're somewhere hiding in the dark. They're sometimes I see it, and in my experience, I saw a part of me, she was hiding in the basement, right? Can you imagine how cold and lonely that is, and how scared she must have been? And she was, I know this for a fact. And so we have many parts, and it's for us to, it's our job to find the curiosity and to see, how can I start to become whole again, right? How can I invite these parts into my life again? How can I become abundant within myself, create unity within myself? And abundant as in, what I experienced when I started doing this integration work was feeling so rich of self, because I realized that being in lack was something, not just something external, right? It didn't just have to do with money. It didn't just have to do with material things. It had to do with my inner state. And I know that within the spiritual teachings, people talk about this, right? They talk about lack, and they talk about abundance, and we need to think abundant thoughts and think in possibility, think in limitlessness. But what about ourselves? How are we with ourselves? How is our relationship with ourselves? Because what we are within is what is translated back to us in our reality. And I know these teachings, they're not, I mean, when I talk about that our reality is a mirror, I think most of us within the spiritual community, or when you're on your spiritual journey, you know that your mirror is reflecting something back to you, because that's something that you've learned. That you probably looked into the law of attraction, and we manifest what we are. But what does that mean in our day-to-day life? What does it mean with who we are being from moment to moment? And that's what this work, what I found, that I was so fortunate to learn in my life, is what changed it for me. Because I started to see it as I started to heal and integrate. And this, by the way, is a very challenging, difficult journey. I'm not saying that this work is easy. I'm saying, you'll meet yourself with a lot of resistance, a lot of emotions you probably do not want to feel. That's what I've experienced. I started to get angry again, because that was something that was suppressed in me, and I will talk about that in another video, because that's a whole topic on itself. But having all parts of ourselves, the richness of being you, the richness of having yourself, quite literally, to embracing all parts that you once had to lose, suppress, grieve, that's where the real unity starts. And yes, it starts, when you look into the world, and when we start awakening, we see all these problems in the world. We see where there's so much separation, there's so much hate, there's so much this or that, and polarity, contrast. And, recently the elections were going on in America, and that was a whole thing, and it still is a whole thing. And so all this polarity is a global manifestation of what is happening here in the now within us. And how can we make real change in the world? It's not through fixing external things. It's starting with yourself. How can you have the most profound impact on yourself? And then others around you, your friends and family, and maybe extend that further and further, depending on what you feel called to do in this lifetime, right? It starts with becoming whole again. And so I think a lot of you may question, well, how do you do that then? Now you've talked about all this, and how do I tangibly do this? And I think one tangible thing, there are many things, and I cannot go into the whole process, but one tangible thing that you definitely can start doing today is starting to be curious to what's going on in your thought. Start listening. Okay, I'm going to the next point already, but I'm gonna stay with this. What's going on in your mind, in your thoughts? When you think about the inner critic, talk to the inner critic. Hey, I noticed that you're calling me XYZ, I don't know, not enough, not ugly, fat, not smart enough. Whatever that looks like for you in your life. How come? What's going on? Is there something you want to talk to me about? Is there something you want to share? And then you have that conversation, and you meet it with loving awareness. I recently saw this beautiful video of Ram Dass with Thich Nhat Hanh. I'm completely saying this wrong. I'm going to share it here. Anyway, and he also talked about one part meeting another part. So the loving awareness that you are meeting the part that is saying all these things, and that feels insecure, and that feels angry, or that feels scared and overwhelmed. So that's one way that you can tangibly start doing this, and you'll be amazed with what you find. Another way is to simply notice the sensations in your body. To me, now that I've done this work, I notice a lot faster when my change in my body starts to react, right? When I start feeling unsafe, when my nervous system is is trying to alert me, hey, I don't feel safe anymore. My energy starts to contract. I feel angry, I feel scared, I feel like I'm in my head, like I cannot access my knowing. And that's when I know that something is going on. There is a part of me that's scared. And so you can talk to your body parts too. You can talk to an emotion that arises. You can speak with it and you embrace it. And now, one thing that I do want to mention is that it's really difficult, and this is what Susan Jane Rome taught me. It's really difficult to do this by yourself because people talk about reparenting yourself, reparenting your inner children, and it's really difficult to reparent your inner children when you've never had the example of how that's supposed to go, right? So if you have someone, or if you have the opportunity to work with someone or have someone in your life that can play that role in your life so that you learn new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of approaching yourself, that's going to be your shortcut to doing this kind of work and integrating all parts, and your way to living in abundance. Because once again, I want to say, and I wonder if I should share it now. Maybe I should share it now. So there was this manifestation story, and this is all part of the aftermath of what I've done, the work that I've done. And it's a really cool kind of low-key manifestation story, but it is manifestation, and I've had multiple of these kind of examples. So I was, I love surfing, and so we surf a lot here. We stay in Bali for a couple months every year, and often I was thinking, oh, it would be so cool if somebody captured these moments. And there are actually a lot of photographers, but I don't know, I didn't feel like that was something I could afford at the moment. And so, it's just something that I thought about sometimes. Oh, it would be so cool if, someone would take our photos. And one day, Migo and I, we got back from surfing, and Migo found this tiny bag on his motorbike, and he lifted it up, and he felt, oh, this is actually quite heavy, and I think there's some important stuff in here. And so what happened was, he wanted to bring this to the parking guy, the guy who was taking care of the parking. Great way of saying that. Okay, Lynn. And so when he, at the moment that he wanted to do that, this guy came racing over, and he said, oh, that's my bag, and that's all my money in there, and my phone and everything. And so he was so grateful, and he said to us, so do you guys surf? And we said, yeah, we surf. What about you? He said, yeah, I'm a photographer, and if you want, I can take your photos just as a present, because I just appreciate so much that you found my wallet, you found my phone. And so the next day we went surfing, and he came in the morning, early morning, and he took the most amazing, beautiful photos. The ocean was so clean and beautiful, and it was just perfect. And he even made some videos as well that I could use in his footage. And I thought this is the perfect example of manifestation without taking any sort of action, right? Because that's what people talk about. Not really taking action, just some things happening. And this is what happens when you start doing this work. And I have more stories like this, but this is an example. This is what starts happening when you start doing this work, when you start creating abundance within yourself. It's your baseline vibration that I talk about in other videos. It's the vibration who you are from moment to moment, not when you're consciously trying to be a certain vibration. It's who you are being when you're not trying. And they say it's 5% conscious action and thoughts that we have every single day, and 95% the rest of the day we are completely unconscious. So think about the effort it takes when you want to force with your conscious mind. It's like swimming against the current. It's, you know, you're working against yourself. And I'm not saying that this is wrong. I've done this too. I've been there too. But when we truly want to live and have all the beautiful things and feel the joy and the bliss and the peace without, at the first place, anything changing outside of us, and we start doing this work, we can actually have all those things, the external things, and we don't feel like we need to force. We don't feel like it's it's just effort after effort after effort, right? And then still not really getting sustainably what it is that you want. And all those things are kind of aftermath. It's a side effect for doing the inner work. And so I think this is what my message is for today. This is how we start creating unity within ourselves. This is where I think we will find the new world that some people talk about, and the new vibration. This is how we create that, and this is what you can do today in your life to start creating that for your own. Because I wish you nothing more, less or more. I do wish you more, actually, than living in freedom and living in love and peace and bliss, and then having all the other beautiful things as a consequence of that. And then because you feel like you have so much abundance of love, of joy, of things, maybe of money, then you can share it with other people. And that's what this spiritual journey, I think, is about. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. And I think that's really it for today. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.